Hello everybody, this is John. Welcome to the NCGA Valent Ag Weather Outlook for May 20th, 2017. Well, as many of you know, it's been a very busy week, lots of severe weather, heavy rain and flooding, but it is spring and that's what we do get in spring, as you know. The positive is it's really keeping our soils recharged. I know they're wet in spots, but this will be good as we get into the hot summer months. But there have been some areas that have mixed out on the action, especially North Dakota, parts of South Dakota, the upper Midwest. Well, here's the precipitation over the last 7 days. You can see that some areas received quite a soaking rain. That's indicated in the yellow, which is 2 inches or more, and then within that, in the strongest storms, 5 inches or more in the areas of red. Other areas not nearly as much, including North and South Dakota and the eastern Corn Belt, which received quite a bit less as it was sort of centered over the central part of the U.S. over the last week. But we did have severe weather just about every day this week, as you can see here in different areas, some days more than others. A lot of wind events that's indicated by the blue reports here. So the number of rain days over the last 30 shows that it's been fairly active. Areas in green are indicating 16 to 20 days where we've had some measurable rain out of the last 30. But look at North and South Dakota. That's at only 2 or 3 days over the last 30 with some measurable rain. So this is where we really need the rain up here in the upper Midwest, North Dakota, South Dakota. Everywhere else has been doing pretty good. So when we look at areas that are dry, this is the drought monitor. Again, it sort of points our attention to the Dakotas. Everywhere else there is no drought indicated. And actually that yellow in the Dakotas is not really drought, it's just abnormally dry. But if we don't get more rain in that area, I think we will be talking about a low degree of drought not too far down the road. So the soil moisture change here, the most action, it was in the central part of the middle part of the nation, not as much the eastern Corn Belt. So the eastern Corn Belt actually dried out a bit last week. That had been very wet. So with some warmer temperatures, we helped dry out the soil. And that was positive because that was wet. We have more rain on the way at the beginning of this weekend, and then drying out in that area once again. So soils here are wettest where we had some really heavy rain over parts of Wisconsin, northwest Iowa, parts of Kansas. Everywhere else, at least from this model, is indicating relatively near normal to a bit above normal. Here are your soil temperatures. They've lagged a bit, but just over the last week they are working up to the north of 60-degree line, as you can see here, and that would be expected as we go through the summer months. Now we have a number of rivers still in flood. Now most of these are coming down. The flood wave is working down the lower Mississippi. So everywhere else is pretty much coming down. Now, an exception is going to be where we had this heavy rain. So we have some rises on the Missouri, but in the middle Mississippi, this area is coming down. Now, yellow is indicating high, but within bank. Orange is minor flooding, and red is moderate flooding. So that's more significant in the areas where red is, and there's expected to be more inundation. So the story this week will be the digging of the jet stream. I mentioned that last week in the briefing. That has really caused all the severe weather, this contrast to this cooler air moving in. Again, that's spring, alternating air masses. So that's centered over the central part of the U.S., and thus we can expect over the next 5 days significantly below normal temperatures, especially over this northern and central Corn Belt. Not as much over the east, as the week will start off milder before that cooler air pushes in. So as far as precipitation goes, a much quieter week. The action is going to shift to the southeast U.S., especially parts of the western Carolinas, Georgia, Alabama, and then along the immediate Gulf Coast. Some precipitation over the upper Midwest, but again, it does not look like it's going to get into either North or South Dakota. And then as that front goes through, there will be some precipitation over the eastern Corn Belt early in the period, and that will be accompanied by a slight chance of severe weather. So the soil moisture change over the next 7 days, it's sort of a mix here. We're going to have some early precipitation that will increase soil moisture in areas of blue, not significantly. Many other areas will be drying out as indicated in brown, but look at the southeast U.S., that area in blue. Significant wetting of soils in that area, and many areas do need it in that region. So then as we look through the 6 to 10 day period, May 25th through 30th, we see that digging of that trough shifts off to the east. It's not as deep. So what we see is we see temperatures moderating back to normal. So really maybe a 5-day period of this noticeably pleasant cooler temperatures and then moderating back to normal. Still, at least out through 10 days, no sign of excessively hot readings. Now as we round out June or May and get into early June, I put the purple line here. That's saying the ridge of high pressure starts to build. It's not overly strong, but it does mean we will be warming up a bit above normal. So let's sort of go through the sequence. This isn't for all areas, but it is for most areas. We'll start off with this cool shot for about 5 days, then get back towards normal, and then as we get into the early part of June, temperatures rebounding to a bit above normal, but not excessively so. Precipitation, like I said, a quiet week. Most areas below normal precipitation over the week. Across the U.S. Corn Belt, the southeast U.S., quite wet. Here's week 2. We'll have to see how this works out. It shows right over the central U.S. Again, some action, but as we get into summertime, or closer to summertime, I should say, these anomalies 2 weeks out for precipitation often aren't all that exciting or all that accurate. So I think I've covered everything pretty much for the next couple weeks here. Looks like after a very busy week, it looks like a much quieter week this week. Might not issue quite as much. I know I've been putting a lot of content out. I might give you a break this week. I always say that and I never do, but I'm going to try that. Looks like cooler for a while, but then back to near normal temperatures probably towards the end of this week. Hope everybody has a great week and enjoy the cooler temperatures, spring temperatures, refreshing air mass moving in, and I will be talking with you via the briefing again next weekend.